Are we live? I think we just went live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ball Oasis show. Things might look a little different this time because we're three-man weaving it. Three-man weaving this episode. We've got our boy Tanner here. We got our boy Tanner here today. What's up, Tanner? How you doing, man?
What's good, gentlemen? How are
Good
y'all?
to see you, man. It's been a little minute. Been a little minute since you've been on the Ball Oasis channel.
I know I've been hibernating, but I'm back.
It's good to have you, man. Good to have a third. Did you know that we were originally supposed to have three on this channel? It was originally supposed to be a three-man channel, so this is like ideal for us.
Who's the weirdo that dropped out?
It is my friend from Arkansas, of course. All weirdos live in Arkansas. No. But my friend Matt from Arkansas was supposed to be our third originally. I actually saw him earlier this week. Shout out to Matt.
And he name dropped. Matt, you're a bum. I'm just playing. I don't know you. I don't know.
He's a Chiefs fan. He's a Kansas fan. So he's ultimate bandwagon.
Little Midwesterner. Midwesterner.
That's my guy, though. But it's great to have you on, Tanner. It's great to have you back. If you didn't know, you have joined us right in the midst of our lists that we do, our off-season position lists. So we've already done point guards and shooting guards. So today we're doing small forwards. So how do you feel about ranking some small forwards with us today?
I'm feeling good, man. I spent a long time on this list. It was hard to only put it down to 10. And it was hard to rank the 10 that I put it down to. But we're here. We're balling.
Live in effect, straight and direct. Jacob, how you doing today?
Good. Hoping the Wi-Fi keeps going. But other than that, yeah, the list was kind of easy for me. Just a few new names and kind of weird places.
Yeah, Jacob was the one out of all of us who said this list was a breeze. So I don't share that sentiment. I don't know if you do, Tanner, but this list was tough for me. This list was a tough one for me to do. A lot of older guys on this list. You do have a few younger second, third year players who will kind of work their way into it. So we'll see what each of us has. I expect, and I know I say it every time, but I expect us to all have very different lists. So I'm excited for this one today, especially having Tanner here. I'm excited to kind of pick Tanner's brain about how he kind of gauges some of these guys.
I got $20 on Jacob having Paul George at number 1.
No.
No. Paul George or Jimmy Butler, one of the two. It's got to be one of the two.
Jaylen Brown at number 10, or not even on the list.
Yeah, I was about to say if number 10. If number 10. Biggest Celtics hater of all time, Jacob McDaniel. But yeah, let's hop right into this list, y'all. We got our honorable mentions here. Who wants to start?
I'll say my honorable mentions. I have Brandon Miller and Michael Porter Jr.
Okay. Wait, you go ahead.
So I was real close to putting Brandon Miller on the list. I just couldn't come to it. But I think he is the next guy that was kind of like the next guy out. But he was really close to being on there.
Yeah. Tanner, who you got?
I have Michael Porter, and I put Cash Money Chris Middleton as an honorable mention.
Cash Money Chris. I have Brandon Miller and Cash Money Chris. Those are my two honorable mentions. So, yeah. Brandon Miller was kind of a guy that I tried to kind of find a way onto this list because I think his second year will be better than his first year, obviously. And he had a pretty solid first year in Charlotte. He projects to be the second option alongside LaMelo going forward. Good scorer, a good, two-way player. Projects to be a good two-way player, good three-level scorer. I expect him to have like a 20-plus point per game scoring season this next season with Charlotte. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't outside of injury. So, yeah, I project good things for Brandon Miller. With Cash Money, Chris Middleton, it's kind of an age thing, and it's kind of just uncertainty with the Bucks for me. Why I couldn't, put him in the top 10. Me and Jacob both had him in our top 10 last year, obviously. But with the Bucks being shaky and with, things with Chris Middleton getting up in age, it's just kind of hard to rationalize at this point for me if they're not going to be like a finals contending team. With which you can't say for sure. You would like to think so. At least I would like to think so. But I can't say that confidently right now. So I can't rationalize putting Chris Middleton in the top 10.
I have him out of, respect. He's been here for a little minute, over a half decade now, where he's just been, a consistent glue guy when he's on the floor. So, I have him here. You could say he's in your top 10. I wouldn't be mad at you. Chris Middleton's just been a very consistent guy for a little while now.
I was thinking about this. Do y'all think that there's a possibility he gets traded this season?
With this contract, it's hard to say, just because his production has gone down a little bit, like over the past couple of years, and his contract is very big.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't. If I had to say, I don't know. I would lean towards no, just because of his contract and he's getting older. His production has gone down a little bit. I don't think any team would be incentivized to just go and get Chris Middleton.
Yeah, that's why it'd have to depend on the team. I think it'd probably be a Western Conference team. I don't know if they'd want to trade him in the East, but it is kind of hard to say with the age and everything. It'd have to be a team that for sure knows they can get either to the finals or has a really good shot.
Yeah. The only reason I asked that is because there's obviously pressure on the Bucks this upcoming season to be in that highest echelon of teams, and I feel like whatever they can do to ensure that Giannis and Dame and the rest of that team have the best chance to compete, they should look to do. So I think just from a talent perspective, yeah, Chris Middleton's trade value is probably not the highest. But you look at his contract, you look at, the production that he does put out whenever he's healthy. And he's kind of like the only player that they could possibly move on that team that's like worth something in return, worth anything. Unless you want to throw like Andre Jackson or one of their rookies, which I don't know if they would have great value or if they would even consider doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and say my number 10. This is where I had Chris Middleton, so I really won't talk about him much. But it was kind of like the respect thing. I know we said it last year, or I said it last year, that'd probably be the last year he's on the list, and I think this is the last year he'll be on the list. We've been speaking on him. The role's been, not as big as it has been before, but I do think Milwaukee could be a little bit better than last year, whether it be, staying healthy or don't switch coaches not even midway through the season. But yeah, this is definitely the last year he'll be on here. Like I said, his numbers might decrease again, but it's kind of hard to say. It was between Chris and Brandon Miller for my 10. I just kind of settled on Chris.
Yeah. Well, since both of y'all had Michael Porter Jr. at y'all's number 10, I'll go ahead and say Michael Porter Jr. is my number 10. 17 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists last season. Shot 40% from 3 on about 7 attempts. We know Michael Porter Jr., once he catches the rock, he's most likely not going to move it. He's most likely going to put that joint up at the rim. So we know who Michael Porter is as a player. He takes some of the hardest shots in basketball, so his shot selection is something that can maybe be looked at as kind of controversial to, efficiency with the Denver Nuggets. But as long as Jokic and Jamal Murray are the ones who are feeding him the ball, he's going to get good looks. He's going to, have opportunities to, knock down shots. And he's such an important player on that Nuggets team going forward because they have kind of reached a point, I think, where, the Western Conference and the Nuggets can't really do much else to improve their roster. So you really have to be able to draw a lot out of guys like Michael Porter and Peyton Watson and Julian Strawther wings going forward. But yeah, Michael Porter Jr. is going to have to continue to, be an efficient shooter. He's going to have to, get good shots, and he's going to have to continue to, improve on the defensive end as well. But I think that he has all the tools to do that. I'm very glad for his sake that we've put like the injury stuff kind of behind us. with him. He played over 70 games last season. I think he played 79 games last season, which is huge for Michael Porter. That's huge. So as long as he's available, as long as he's healthy, he's going to be a great scoring option for them, and the Nuggets are going to be a top 4 team in the Western Conference, you would think. So I got him here at my number 10.
This is where I have Clay.
Ooh. Over 10, Clay?
0 10. Yeah, this is where I have Clay, man.
Wow.
Objectively, this was probably, outside of his first couple years, his worst season as a pro. Not great. He shot under 40% from 3 this past season. Was unheard of for Klay Thompson, and then obviously he shot over 10 in the play-in. But I think he's gonna be. I don't know, man. I think you could argue Klay is probably the best off-ball player in the entire history of the sport, and now he's going to play with Luka Doncic.
That's a great point.
Like, Klay Thompson is going to work wonders in the Dallas Mavericks system. If this man Tim Hardaway can be like a decent NBA player, and you place him with Klay Thompson, oh boy. Again, he didn't have a good season last year for his standards at all, shooting under 40% from 3, barely over 40% from the field. Not playing well when it mattered most. There's obviously question marks with Klay. He's getting older. His defensive impact isn't as great as it used to be. But the Mavericks knew that when they signed him, right? So what you want out of Klay Thompson is this historic shooting production and the veteran leadership, this championship leadership that I think the Mavericks have really been missing. You pair that with Jason Kidd, who's got a finals appearance as a coach under his belt. You pair that with Luka Doncic, who, man, Luka, after losing in the finals, he's going to be super, super hungry this next season. I don't know. The Mavericks are going to be scary, and Klay's going to be a huge part of that. That's why I have him at number 10.
I did not expect to hear Klay's name on this list. I did not expect to hear it. So that's very, it kind of woke me all the way up. I'm ready.
My number 9.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead with your number 9.
I wish I didn't
have Klay, do you?
No.
Okay.
I wish I didn't have him so low, but this is why I have Franz Wagner. The biggest thing is the shooting.
Yeah.
But last year he averaged. See, I had him high at first, but I kind of had to move him. I moved the back half around a few times, but he averaged 20 points last year, 5 rebounds, almost 4 assists, but he shot 28% from 3. And I know it's only 5 attempts, but it's like it was really bad last year. And they definitely needed shooting, which he can get points without shooting a 3, but it's just kind of as being their highest paid player now, and that's like the main thing they need. I believe he's their highest paid player. And that's shooting is the main thing they need, which is why they bring in KCP. But it would be really great for them if they could kind of improve that. If he can kind of improve the 3-point shot a little bit, because I don't think it was this bad the year before, but it was really bad last year.
But he also had one of the worst game 7s that I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the only reason I have him this low is can the shooting improve. But it could, but like I said, it feels like I could have had him higher. I just couldn't come to it.
Oh man, that kind of hurts me.
He had him high. I had him at 6 at first, but I had to move him down.
Wow.
I had to move him down some.
This is also where I had Franz. I'm gonna.
Oh man.
I'm gonna butt in and talk about him. Franz is he obviously got the bag for good reason. He's one of the brighter young players in the NBA, and the one thing, as Jacob pointed out, is his outside shooting. For a team, like the Magic, you You really want that. You bring in guys like KCP to help with that, to get the load off of Franz Wagner when he isn't shooting as well as they would like him to be. But other than that, I don't really think he has much weaknesses in his game. He's a very complete player outside of the outside shooting. And in the playoffs, he played up to his standard until the very last game. He didn't shoot well at all during the playoffs at all. He shot even worse than he did in the regular season, which was very hard to do. But the consistency is what I want to see from Franz Wagner. Can he be at his best at a more consistent rate? Because I think if Franz Wagner can get more consistent and just shoot even a little better, maybe get up to league average, Franz might shoot all the way up.
He's dogging at that point.
Absolutely.
Man, that just pains me, man. That pains me. But I understand it. I do. He was, like, out of all qualified shooters, was the worst three-point shooter in the NBA last season out of guys who took, like, over 150 attempts. So I get it. I understand it. He ended the season very poorly. I projected Franz a little higher for next season. I'm very high on Franz going forward, so he's a little higher on my list. At my number 9, this is going to be a guy that seems very low. He seems very low. I couldn't rationalize putting him any higher because his role has kind of changed. He's on a new team, and he's getting up in age. At number 9, I have DeMar DeRozan. I have DeMar at number 9. It was 24 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists last season. So counting stats were obviously really good. He played over 70 games in Chicago last season, was available most of the time, which is a big deal for a guy at DeMar DeRozan's age. Shot 33% from 3 on 2.8 attempts. You don't expect him to come into Sacramento and be, a three-point shooter outside of like the corner where he's kind of, improved on a lot throughout the years. Even 2.8 attempts last season is very high for DeMar DeRozan's standard. But he's going to be the mid-range killer he always has been. He's going to be able to be a secondary playmaker alongside De'Aaron Fox. I project him as the 3 on that starting lineup for the Sacramento Kings alongside Keegan Murray at the 4, being kind of like the wing tandem. DeMar DeRozan is going to get his buckets. He's going to get his. I'm interested to see the fit, though, because it's not like Sabonis stretches the floor a whole lot, and he operates from the free throw line more than any big in the NBA. So I'm interested on shot catalog for DeMar DeRozan next season. I wonder if it will differ from how it has been in Chicago in a big way. But he's going to get his points. He's going to be the DeMar DeRozan that we've seen over the past few years. I just think he's getting older, and he's on a Kings team now where he is the third option. So we'll kind of see how he looks there.
He was my number 8. And it was a lot of the same what you said. New role, new team. I think I want to say I said it in the point guard video. De'Aaron Fox and Keegan Murray probably are both going to shoot 10 threes in multiple games. They're gonna have to, because DeMar, he shoots them every now and then, but it's not like a big thing for him. But like you said, kind of how Sabonis kind of controls the free throw line, the mid area. That's the same where DeMar is. So it is going to be kind of different to see how will he shoot more threes, or will he have to kind of adjust a little bit, or will Sabonis adjust down to the post? So that is going to be an interesting thing to watch and see how they kind of play together and figure it out this year.
I also have DeMar at my 8. Me and Jacob are kind of have a little similar past.
Happens.
Did y'all share this?
No.
I'm sure.
I think DeMar in San Francisco and DeMar in Sacramento is going to be a really good fit. I think he'll do a lot of the same things that De'Aaron Fox does, outside of De'Aaron Fox's astronomical rise from 3-point range last season. DeMar is just, I think what the Kings were missing was veteran leadership. They were so young, so just high powered, running up and down the floor, and that's fine. But at some point, you're going to need guys a guy to rally the troops together. When it comes playoff time, when it comes to Game 7, a guy like DeMar DeRozan is perfect for that. A guy who slows the game down, a guy who really is a master of his craft. And I think the Kings are going to be well suited for having a guy like him. I think his numbers will trickle down a little bit just because he's going to be on a more evened out roster with more guys who can get points, but I think his impact will be the same, if not better, in Sacramento.
Do y'all think he'll play a lot more of Malik Monk? Like, not come off the bench, but like if De'Aaron Fox goes to the bench, they'll keep him out there and Malik Monk a little bit more.
I think Malik Monk will be in the closing lineup. I think Malik Monk and DeMar DeRozan will both be in the closing lineup, so I think they will see the floor a lot at the same time. So yeah, I think so. My biggest thing is and kind of why I had DeMar DeRozan lower is just because at his age of like 35 now, and he's never been a prolific defender. You're not expecting much of that from DeMar DeRozan now more than ever. Biggest question for the Kings, which has been the biggest question for like the last 2-3 years at this point, kind of remains like, can they play any defense? Can they give any type of defensive resistance when it matters most? So that's my kind of drawback.
Yeah.
My number 8 though, since y'all both gave y'all's number 8. This is a guy that I've been extremely high on over like the past few years. Really a big fan of this guy. So it's kind of weird for me to have him all the way down here at number 8, but he's also on a new team. His role will definitely diminish offensively on his new team. I've got Mikal Bridges. Down here at number 8. Last season in Brooklyn, of course, played all 82 games, as he always does. 20 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, shot 37% from 3 on 7 attempts. His role is going to be so interesting to watch on that New York team because you have so many capable scorers, but you don't have, like, outside of Jalen Brunson, you don't know who, like, the second guy is going to be on, like, a given night. You'd like to think it'll be Julius Randle, and Julius Randle will, he'll be more than willing to take the most shots out of that secondary group. But Mikal Bridges is a guy at this point where he has become a guy who can get his own off the dribble. He's a great mid-range scorer. He can shoot the 3. And so I'm interested to see where he fits in offensively with this, New York team. Obviously, he's playing with his college teammates, so much chemistry is going to exist already between them. But yeah, he's here at number 8 for me just because I don't know the extent of his role. We know how much of a defensive clamper he is. A huge guy for the Knicks to go out and get. I think he'll be like top 10 in minutes of any player in the NBA next season, partially because of Tibbs and partially just because of him, and his durability on the floor. So I've got Mikal Bridges at number 8 just because I don't know what exactly to project from him next season, but I think good things are on the horizon for him as a Knick.
I had him at number 7.
Okay.
Basically, everything you said. New role. His numbers will go down. Some nights, will he be that second guy? Because we've obviously seen that he can do it. But like you said, it's just kind of see what his role is. Will him and OG just be the 2 guys that mainly focus on like the perimeter defense, or will he, leave that to I don't know what the lineup will be, or will they leave that to mainly somebody else while he can score some nights? So yeah, it's kind of how I said. I wanted them higher, but just the new role and wondering how Tibbs will play him and what role was kind of where I kind of came out lower on him.
We're on 7, right?
Yeah.
This is where I have Kawhi. No, I'm just playing. I'm kidding. No.
You scared me so bad.
This is where I have J-Dub, Jalen Williams.
Really? Huh.
I could not rationalize him putting him higher than 7. I'm sorry. He's got There's no doubt that Jalen Williams is going to be one of the top 4 top wing players in the league for years to come. Just right at this moment, I can't put him any higher than 7. He did have an incredible year for OKC last year, though, averaging 20 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. He was 50, 40, 80, like incredible production from Jalen Williams. And in the playoffs, he was also amazing. 50, 40, 80 as well. 19 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. His numbers went up besides the point production. But Jalen Williams, the real analysis that I have with him is that he is a great basketball player. But right now, I know I have him.
I'm about to say, it doesn't sound like he should be 7. Just based on how you talked about him so glowingly, how is he number 7?
I just can't rationalize him putting him over, the 6 guys I have above him. Yeah.
Wow.
I think next year he'll probably be at the lowest, probably like 3 or 4. That's how highly I think of him. But the 7's where I have him. He wasn't going to go any lower than 7, but he was. I don't know. Just right now. Right now,
bro. It's insane.
Seeing Elijah's reaction.
That's just me, though. Jacob, what do you think?
I have him at 6.
Man,
I want to know you. My thing is, I want to know who you have him over.
I would say I had him at 5, but I couldn't do it. I had to move him down to 6. Toward the back when I finished my list, I had to move him down.
I am excited to see who you have him over, Elijah, because I just couldn't put him over anybody.
We'll find out. You probably have him real high.
Yeah, I won't reveal yet, but he's not number 7 or number 6. I'll let y'all know that right now. At my number 7, this is where I have Franz. So y'all had Franz a little lower at number 9, I believe. So I've got Franz at number 7. I'm projecting him to have a big time year 3. I think he will improve his 3-point shooting. I think he'll be, at least like 3 or 4 percentage points better, to where he's like a low 30s shooter from 3. Because 4.5 attempts is a lot of attempts for a guy who shoots 28% from 3. So he shoots them with the confidence that he can make them. And I think that's the biggest thing. It never deterred him from shooting 3s, despite how poorly he shot. So I think that he's due to only rise as a 3-point shooter. But I project him to be a better playmaker this next season. I expect him to be a better playmaker. He's got kind of like that point guard-ish role on that team a lot of times, where he's bringing the ball up and he's initiating the offense. He's such a good two-way player, such a lengthy defender. But yeah, y'all said it. His biggest thing is just his shooting. Can he be a competent shooter? If he can be a competent shooter, he's an all-star. He's an all-star in this league. May not be next season, but at some point he will be an all-star if he can develop a competent 3-point jump shot. The Magic will be a playoff team once again, you would project. Franz would be big in that. He'll be a 20-point per game scorer again. I expect his assists to go up. I think he will benefit playing alongside a guy like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, I mentioned, a guy who can stretch the floor. He gets to the rim at a really high rate and finishes at a really high rate. So I expect big things for Franz Wagner. So I am projecting a little bit, putting him over Mikal Bridges, which is something I wouldn't normally do. But I think Franz Wagner will have a better objective season than Mikal Bridges will next year.
Yeah, like I said, I could have had him as high as just the shooting is what kind of drew me back a little bit.
You said you had J-Dub at number 6, Jacob. Why is J-Dub at your number 6?
Yeah, he's my number 6, and I completely agree with Tanner. I don't know if I can put him top 3 or 4 this time next year, but I could definitely say he has that upside to be. But it's just the guys above him. Like, I just couldn't come. I guess I don't know if it was like a role thing or what, but I do project him. He averaged. I had it pretty high for. I had him at 5 at first, but he averaged 19 points last year. I can definitely see him getting around 22, 23. Especially, well, it kind of might be hard to in Oklahoma City, just all the great guys they have. But I just couldn't put him above everybody. For this next year, I couldn't put him any higher above the guys I have above him.
Oh, man. I feel like I did something wrong now.
I'm really high on him. I've been high on OKC for a few years now, but I just couldn't put him above any of the other guys. Not at least not for this year.
Tanner, who's your number 6?
This is where I had Mikal Bridges.
Okay.
Obviously, like you said, playing every single game. But like what I want to say is for the Knicks, right? The absolute masterclass, Leon Rose masterclass. The Knicks come off of being the number 1 defense as far as points allowed per game in the Eastern Conference last year. And then you add Mikal Bridges.
Crazy.
The rich get richer. New York had the best season in a long time last year. Jalen Brunson, like superstar now. You add Mikal Bridges, and like you mentioned earlier, Elijah, that chemistry that he's already developed with all the guys he's got around him. With Dante, with Brunson, with somebody else. I'm blanking. Josh Hart. It's gonna be fun to watch. I obviously think his numbers will dwindle down a little bit. He's not gonna average 20 for the next year. It's just not gonna happen. But I think his efficiency will go up with his usage going down. Mikal Bridges is going to give you really, really good true shooting and efficiency along with elite defense, shooting. He's going to give everything that the Knicks need that they wanted from OG Anunoby, but he wasn't really available down the stretch of the season. It's going to be scary to watch the Knicks next year. I think the Knicks will compete for the 1 seed with the Celtics next year, and Mikal Bridges is going to be a really, really big part of that.
So let's hope the Tom Thibodeau effect
agree with everything that was said. What you said?
What'd you say, Jacob?
So let's hope the Tom Thibodeau effect doesn't get to him.
If anybody is going to run Mikal Bridges to the ground, it's going to be Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah.
It's really immovable object versus immeasurable force or whatever they say. It's that. It's what it is.
Yeah.
Something has got to give. Something has got to give. I'm so excited to watch the Knicks though next season. They're going to be so fun. The Garden is going to be rocking again. So yeah, I agree. My number 6. This is where I have Brandon Ingram. I have Brandon Ingram at number 6. 21 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists last season. 49 from the field, 36 from 3 on a little under 4 attempts. He's in trade rumors right now, as we know. Don't know how much substance those rumors really have. Don't know how much to put any stock into those rumors. But we could see Brandon Ingram move at some point. Brandon Ingram has like the talent and the potential, I think, in the right setting to be like a top 3 guy on this list. And he's still pretty young. He's still 26, 27 years old. It's weird to think about how long Brandon Ingram has been in the NBA at this point. This is like his 9th season as an NBA player. And it seems like we keep having – yeah, for real. It seems like we've had like the same narrative about Brandon Ingram though for the longest time. Like if he does this or if he reaches this point, he could be like that upper echelon level guy. And I'm not saying like he's run out of time, but I feel like those narratives have just become so redundant. And I don't want to attach, narrative to a player, in this case being Brandon Ingram. I don't want that to like designate his value. But it's got to reach a point. Like Brandon Ingram has never been an all-star. In his 8-year NBA career, he has never been an all-star at this point. And with the talent level that we all know he has, and the level that we know he can play, it's so beyond me that he just hasn't reached that level yet. And it's kind of hard for me to believe that, it will ever be reached at this point. Maybe this is like the best Brandon Ingram can be. And he's still a really, really good player, obviously. But yeah, I just don't know how Brandon Ingram gets much better than he is now, outside of, maybe another situation on another team that kind of puts him in position to, do more. But I think that might come at the cost of winning games. I just don't know how Brandon Ingram goes up from here. So he's at my number 6 just because I can't project him to continue going up and up on this list. Talent-wise, he's obviously great. He's a very underrated playmaker. But yeah, I just couldn't rationalize putting Brandon Ingram higher.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I do think he is an underrated playmaker, but like you said, he might be at his peak, which is still pretty good, still all-star level. He just hasn't been there, like hasn't got the accolade. But I think earlier in the offseason he would have got moved. Like there's a better chance. Now I'm not sure if there's a team that would want his contract or even take that risk in taking him. But even if he is kind of in New Orleans, I still think he'd have a really good year and still be at all-star level, but probably won't even get it.
Isn't it weird to think that Brandon Ingram is older than Jason Tatum? Isn't that so weird?
I mean,
or is that just me?
He was the draft class before Tatum, so it makes sense. But like they're both. It is weird that like Tatum's going into year 8. Brandon Ingram's going into year 9. Booker's going into year 10. Same with Porzingis and Cat. Like, this is insane. Booker still feels like he's 23. Like, Booker's been 23 for 5 years.
Tatum's been 19 for 8.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just my thing with Brandon Ingram. It's just a personal thing. Yeah, I guess. But yeah, I couldn't find myself to put him over the 5 guys I have above him. I couldn't do it.
Have you gave your 6 yet, Tanner?
With that being said,
yeah, I said Mikal Bridges.
Okay, yeah, 5 is where I had Brandon Ingram.
Okay.
And basically everything you said kind of has he topped out, but I still think he could get a little bit better. But it is like a great place he is at. But maybe, like we've said with other players, if he changes teams and kind of gets a different role or bigger role or whatever you want to call it, I still think he has the ability to be top 5, maybe even higher. But as from what we've seen, it kind of 5 is kind of like his not set spot. But because, like I said, J-Dub can probably get this spot next year. It's just for this year, I had to leave him here.
Tanner, you got a number 5.
This is also where I had Brandon Ingram. I don't know. I don't want to just copy everything that y'all said, but it's just I was going to say the same thing that along the lines of you said, Elijah. I don't really know how much Brandon Ingram can get better just because I don't know. I just feel like we've seen it. You hope he plays better in a playoff setting. I know they played the 1 seed Thunder, but he put up a stinker in 4 games. He wasn't great. You want to see his, consistency. Like some of these guys that like the little big question mark that they have is consistency. Can they do this, for an entire season going into, May and June? It's my thing with Brandon Ingram. If the Pelicans do end up making the playoffs, which this year, I think they could just go past the play-in and make the playoffs. I think Brandon Ingram needs to step up and be, what he is in the regular season in the playoffs. If we want to see this upper echelon that we've been hoping for Brandon Ingram.
Do y'all think? Let me ask this: do y'all think he's still the clear second option on that team now?
Yes. I still think it's Zion than him, yeah.
You still have CJ, you bring in DeJounte, but I think Ingram, you could argue it's close with CJ, but he's just the best pure scorer, I think, on that team. So I think that's just what puts him at number 2. Zion's going to average 30, just, throwing stuff in the basket, but Ingram's just he's so fun to watch play offense, man. You said he's an underrated playmaker. He averaged almost 6 assists per game last season. It's pretty eye-opening when you write down his statistics. It's almost 6 assists. Like the Pelicans are going to have a really fun offense to watch next year because you bring in a guy like DeJounte Murray who can average 9. You bring like CJ McCollum can easily average 5. Then you have Brandon Ingram averaging 6 last year. Zion's got a playmaking element to his game. So
Yeah.
It's gonna be cool to watch this offense.
And Trey Murphy's coming into that starting lineup at some point, so he's gonna be developing that too. Stamp that.
While we're on Pelicans talk, do you think Zion is playing the 5 this year?
I've seen more buzz about that lately. I just can't believe that it would happen. I can't believe it. I think that he would get in foul trouble too easily. That's just my biggest hold up. It would be fun. I think it'd be fun to watch because people are like comparing it to when the Rockets had PJ Tucker at the 5, and PJ Tucker's obviously like 6'5". The system is just so different though, and the Pelicans don't have those like perimeter lockdown guys. Actually, I just slide. I just slide on camera. They do have those guys. I just totally forgot about Herb Jones. But yeah, like, so what would the starting lineup be then? Would it be
I think if you want to play 5 out, that if Zion does play the 5, I think that's what you have to lean into is a 5 out offense. Because if you just put Zion at point guard and just have the rest of the guys on the perimeter, nobody's stopping that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think offensively, yeah. I think offensively, I would go for it. My drawbacks are all defensive on the defensive end though. Can the perimeter guys make up enough for the lack of size?
Would CJ come off the bench in that scenario? Like, would you want to
I
start?
think Trey Murphy would still come off the bench.
Okay, I was about to say because if you started DeJounte, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Ingram, and Zion, I think that could be the spacing could be good, but it's just
that's fine defensively. That'd be at least what you want. But if you want, I think full potential as a team, I think you just lean into the offense and just go CJ, DeJounte, Ingram, and you could probably flip flop Trey Murphy and Herb Jones, and then Zion. Because they could. I think the Pelicans have the potential this season. I know we're on a small forward thing. I think the Pelicans have the potential this season, if they can get things clicking, to be what the Thunder were last year. Maybe not a 1 seed, right? But just this young, fun team who finally gets it gelled together, who finally has all the pieces together. They can score 120 points a game. They'll be in the bottom half of the league defensively, but they can score 120 points a game, and that'll win them games. We'll see come playoff time, but I think the Pelicans have the potential to be like that.
I think for them to reach that level, I'm not saying that they can. I'm not saying it's not possible, but for them to reach that level, Zion Williamson has to be an MVP candidate. He has to be an MVP level player.
Yeah, if Zion is on and off the floor, Pelicans are just going to be what they're going to be every year, even with the addition of DeJounte Murray. That really doesn't move much for me. But Zion has to be available. Zion has to probably at least play the minimum games that he can be on like an All-NBA team, like, what is it, 58 or something?
65.
Okay, well, undershot that by a billion. Let's say like I'll put the bar at 60. If Zion can play 60 games for this team, there's not many teams that can match that output from the Pelicans.
He played 70 last year, I think.
Yeah, he played 70 games last year, so he's capable. He looks good this offseason too. I'm looking up though, like the Pelicans roster right now. The only like a playable center they have on the roster is Daniel Tice. So
didn't they draft one, or is he kind of like a smaller center?
They drafted Yves Missy out of Baylor.
Yeah,
but he's
6'9",
rookie. Yeah, he's a smaller center. So, I mean, we could see it. We could realistically see that.
I think that's your best. I think that's your best option. I'm not playing Daniel Tice.
I think he could be 5, but yeah, it's just kind of how.
Not as your starting 5.
Who talking about Zion?
No, Daniel Tice.
Oh yeah,
I
no,
do not want Daniel Tice to be a starting 5.
Yeah, no. But I think Zion. I think he could because I mean he has the size and the strength to kind of be able to guard like the bigger centers. But yeah, it just kind of depends.
It's an
That's gonna
interesting
be-
question. It like the Pelicans are always a good talking point every offseason because you look at their roster and you think they would do so much more than just be an 8 seed and win, they won 49 games last year. They weren't a bad basketball team. The West was just a gauntlet, but
Well, and if you think about it too, through like the first like 2 months of the season, they were the 1 seed. They were the 1 seed in the Western Conference through like the first 30 or so games.
They've shown that they can be like what the Thunder were this past year. The Thunder, nobody thought the Thunder were going to be the 1 seed. Most people thought that they were going to be good and make the playoffs. But the Pelicans, I believe, have the potential to be a 1 seed come the end of the year. They just got to do it.
Yeah.
You just got to do it.
Just got to do it. Got to do it. The Ball Oasis channel, the New Orleans Pelicans podcast. We're here every week, y'all. We're here every week.
Yeah, you have to come back for the conference predictions. That'd be fun.
Yeah, we'll definitely revisit this when we talk about the Pelicans. Yeah. Back to small forwards though. Y'all both given y'all's number 5 already, right? Brandon Ingram was y'all's number 5.
Yep.
Okay, my number 5. This is where I have Paul George. I have Paul George at my number 5. Yeah, J-Dub's higher than Paul George. Go ahead in the comments. Go ahead. Let me have it.
No, I want you to stop right now.
Paul George.
I want you to stop right now. I need an explanation. I'm not mad. I can see it. I'm not mad. Paul George is a little old. I need your in-depth analysis as to why Jalen Williams in 2024 is better than Paul George.
That's what I'm here for, and that's what I made this list for. So let's get right into it. Like you said, Paul George is like 33, 34 years old at this point. He had a good season last year, 23 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, shot over 40% from 3 on 8 attempts. Great. Paul George had some good moments in the playoffs. Great. He's on a team now. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, playing for the Philadelphia 76ers.
He's definitely on a team. He's definitely
on a team. He's definitely a player. He's the player. He'll be the third option on that team. We can all project with Joel obviously being number 1, Tyrese Maxey at this point being the number 2 guy. Wouldn't you say so, Jacob? This is your team, by the way.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. So we project Paul George to be the third option. I don't know, like numbers-wise, if he'll take a huge dip. I think that he probably, won't average 23 points like he did this past season, being, kind of the 1B on the Clippers. Some nights when Kawhi wasn't there, he's 1A, obviously. But it's really just a projection. It's really just a projection for next season for me. I think Paul George will be who he has shown up as in terms of what he can provide you on the floor. I just think in terms of his role and in terms of the extent of that role, I think that it will not give him as much of the potential to be great. And I think Jalen Williams really has the opportunity to do that next season. I'll go ahead and say it. Jalen Williams is my number 4. So I have Jalen Williams right above Paul George. He's my number 4 guy. I think when you think about opportunity, and Jalen Williams shot 43% from 3. 43. Coming out of the draft, he was not looked at as a 3-point shooter. And sure, it was on like 3.5 attempts this past season. He shot 43% from 3. That is insane. Mid-range killer. He averaged 5 assists, so he's definitely got the playmaking element. Jalen Williams is also 6'8", 6'9". Basketball Reference has him listed as a power forward. And if you think about it, he could run the 4 still on that Oklahoma City team, depending on the starting lineup. I don't know if they'll start iHeart at the 5 or if they'll, keep Chet at the 5. So we'll kind of have to see how that goes. I'm just really projecting when I think Jalen Williams will be an all-star this next season. I think he'll have an all-star season. I think his scoring, like Jacob said, will take a jump. I think he'll average up around 22, 23 points. He's just so efficient. He does so many things. He does so many little things, too. Jalen Williams, if I was, building a team and I had to get, a secondary or sometimes, 2A, 2B type player, Jalen Williams is the ideal guy. And me and Jacob talked about it last time we were on here, saying, who would you rather have on your team? And I asked myself that question. Would I rather have Jalen Williams or would I rather have Paul George? And after some thought, I went with Jalen Williams. And I know everybody would probably not go that direction with it, but that's just where I'm at. I think Jalen Williams' potential is through the roof. I think that he'll have a great season next season. OKC will obviously be top of the West again. I see great things for Jalen Williams. And Paul George will be great again too. But Paul George is already as great as we've seen him. So it's a projection as well.
I wasn't mad at it. I came off a little aggressive. I wasn't mad at it, but
no, not at all.
I just wanted to see where your head is at. A lot of what Jalen Williams is, what we look at Jalen Williams for next year is a bit of projection. He doesn't have a ton of burn in the NBA yet, like some of these other guys do. We kind of just know, most of these guys, what they're going to be, what their projections are going to be for next season. Jalen Williams is probably the one of the outliers on this list where most of it is projection. Most of it is a high projection. Jalen Williams is one of the brightest young players in the league. And like you said, Elijah, in your analysis, Jalen Williams is probably, I think he's the best 2A, 2B guy you can have on a team. I had him at 7. Sorry.
That's so low, man. That's so low. And like I said, it's all just in my mind. I'm just so high on him. And which I wasn't. Coming out of that draft, whenever the Thunder drafted him, I was like, Jalen Williams from Santa Clara, okay.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if he, projects to be anything in 3 to 4 years. Maybe he's an all-star at this point. So crazy.
Whatever Sam
Have y'all
Presti
given number 4 yet?
Huh?
Yeah, for real. Have y'all given 4s yet?
No.
You go ahead, Jacob.
It's where I have Paul George.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I think I had him here last year too. I can't remember. I believe. Like you said, it kind of will be determined if his points can go up. He averaged 22 or 23 points last year. I think it could go up, but I could see it going down. It kind of depends. I know we talked about this with Tyrese Maxey in the point guard video. It kind of depends on what each role, which we know the roles, but kind of how much they would take away from each other because we know who that guy is going to have the ball most of the time in Joel. But Paul George I believe he was the best catch and shoot 3-point shooter last year, which you could argue that he has better chances with Philly kind of shooting from the gravity that Joel kind of brings to the post. And I know the Clippers had Harden last year, who was one of the better playmakers. We've seen that in recent years. But I think his 3-point shooting can still go up. But like you said, it's kind of just what role will he play? Because I do think he will be the third option, sometimes the second option. Kind of just depends on the matchup that night. Against Boston, I think he'll probably be the third guy. But, a team that has not one of the lockdown wings, he might be the second option that night. So, yeah, kind of 4 is kind of where I kind of stuck with him. I don't think I could have put him higher or lower. I mean, I could have put him lower, but I just still think he'll have a really good year this year. And I know Tim Hardaway Jr. called us stray earlier in the episode. So I'll give my weekly Tobias Harris stray. You're replacing Tobias with Paul George. I won't get much into it, but it's going to be
sounds pretty good.
It's an upgrade for sure.
It's going to be a lot better. just for me, I think scoring wise, I think he might be more efficient from three. I think he might average. I think he averaged 8 attempts last year. I think he could average 10 plus this year. Like I said, with Joel and even Maxey, when he drives, he brings two guys in sometimes. So he can definitely get those open shots from three, even the mid range. Just kind of playing in Philly now, with more of the paint presence of Embiid and the driving factor with Maxey that maybe weren't in LA.
This is where I also had Paul George. I think this 4 is kind of like the sweet spot for PG, in my opinion, where it's like, guys above, guys below. I think this is where he, perfectly falls. And I think me and Jacob just had the same list, man. This is give or take a one spot or two. Just got the same list. I agree with everything Jacob said right there. He comes into a really, really nice situation in Philadelphia where his production as far as points go is probably going to dip a little bit. It may go higher. We don't know. But you know what you're getting out of Paul George. Now, 33, 34 years old. He's not that same elite defender that we know Paul George to be, but he's better than Tobias Harris.
He still can have good plays against wings like Tatum or Jaylen Brown, just guys that you would see in the playoffs in the East.
He'll hold his own a little bit. And Paul George this past year, what we hadn't seen, regularly in a while was his availability. He played all but 8 games last year.
Right.
And
Crazy.
A team like Philadelphia, who has Joel Embiid, whose availability is, very, very skewed every year. If Paul George can stay healthy, I think Paul George will be, a perfect fit for this Philadelphia team. He was darn near 50, 40, 90 last year and wasn't amazing in the playoffs, but he was still very, very good.
Yeah, I could definitely get more into it, but I'll save that for a later episode. But yeah, you're replacing Tobias with Paul George, so I think the opportunity would be a lot better. And he, like you said, his numbers could go up, they still can go down. It kind of just depends on the night, I think.
I can't wait when we do power forwards and Tobias Harris is my number 2.
I would, yeah, I'd lead.
Tobias Harris highlights. Bro is an
Thank you for
NPC.
watching.
Bro is an NPC. He went to Detroit.
Oh, look, I told
NPC.
Jacob, whenever he wins Most Improved Player in Detroit next season,
do not get me started, please. Don't.
we gotta form like a bet or something.
I almost blocked you when you told me that. You almost got blocked. It was bad. I had to close it and reopen it to make sure I saw it right. Don't.
It's happening.
Restart my phone real quick. Make sure he didn't say this god awful take again.
Longest 5.5 years of my life.
But y'all know, or at least if you've been watching the channel, y'all know how much I like Paul George. Paul George is one of my favorite players. So yeah, I echo all those sentiments those guys said. He's going to be who he has been. I just got J-Dub a little higher. That's just me though.
I'm not mad at it. I'm not, because I do like J-Dub. It's just for this upcoming year. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. I'm not mad at all at it.
In hindsight, I probably could have had him over Mikal Bridges a little bit. You could argue for Brandon Ingram, but I said my piece with Mikal and J-Dub. I think as of right now, I couldn't do it.
And
I understand it.
With Paul George, I do think he'll play. It's going to be hard to play another 74 games, but I think he definitely could again this year.
We hope so.
Yeah.
We definitely hope so. Top 3 though. We are at the top 3. Who wants to start us out with number 3? Because I don't want to.
I can go. This is where I have Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Buckets at numero tres. Butler obviously didn't play in the playoffs, but Jimmy Butler is Jimmy Butler, man. He's 21 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. He's going to shoot efficiently. Shot 41% from 3 last year. Not many attempts.
I saw it earlier too.
41% from 3 last year. My thing with the Heat, they've been a little wishy-washy the past 2 years, and obviously the year before they make a finals run, but it's hard to count on that when you're an 8 seed every year, you know?
Yeah.
They sneak into the playoffs again as an 8, and then the Celtics just wash them. They didn't have Jimmy Butler, obviously, but even with Butler, I don't think the Heat do a lot in the playoffs. And Jimmy Butler is going to be great regardless. He's going to coast through the regular season, sort of, and then turn it up in the playoffs when he does play. But I think Butler, like I said with Paul George, I think 3. I don't know, with the emergence of a certain player, I think 3 is the kind of the sweet spot for Jimmy Butler. But availability and I think consistency is the thing with Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say I have Jimmy Butler at number 3 as well.
Wow.
You do too?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I got Jimmy Butler at number 3 also. If you've been watching over the past few weeks, though, I am kind of irrationally high on the Miami Heat going into the next season, and I think maybe it's not going to be like a last hurrah type thing. But I mean, Jimmy Butler is like mid-30s at this point. He's like 35, 36 years old, which is weird.
There's rumors about Jimmy on Brooklyn, but he's a free agent.
I don't put anything into that.
I don't mind, but there's been articles about it and stuff.
He's definitely an age.
But I think this is kind of going to be like the Miami Heat's like real last shot type season with Jimmy Butler as like their number 1 guy. Part of that is because of the emergence of Bam, as a really, really good all-star, all-NBA, at his very best level player. And with all those young guys that they have now, I think you just kind of see a new direction for the Heat, on the kind of not so far horizon now. But I think that this next season is going to serve as kind of Jimmy Butler's last hurrah with the Miami Heat, if that's, what you want to call it. I think he'll have a really, really good season. Like Tanner said, he'll probably, yeah, true, contract year. But he'll probably coast through the regular season like he normally does. Like you said, though, he shot really efficiently last year. If you can get him to play like 65 to 70 games, I think that would be great, though. But playoff time, I think playoff time, obviously, is when we know Jimmy Butler to come alive. And I think that we'll see vintage prime Jimmy Butler once again. And it may not lead to the Heat going to the finals necessarily, but I think they'll be far more competitive than they were this past season. And I think Jimmy Butler, of course, will be at the center of that. I think we'll see a lot of those moments that we've expected at this point to see from Jimmy Butler. So I've got him here at number 3 also.
My number 3 is why I have Jaylen Brown.
I'm not surprised.
Finals MVP, of course, but we kind of saw what he was last year. Huh?
You said Finals MVP, of course, but
yeah.
Where's the but?
He averaged 23 points, almost 6 rebounds, and almost 4 assists. He shot, I don't know if it's almost 50, 40, 90. I know he shot 50% from the field and 35 from 3. I don't have his free throw. But we kind of know what he is. He is one of the best two-way players. He can lock almost any player up. Well, I won't say almost any player, but he can lock most players up, a lot of teams' first options. We saw what he did in the playoffs. He took over when he needed to. And even like if Tatum was struggling, they needed somebody to just step up in a game, like in a bad stretch. Like he can score you 10 points straight if he really wanted to or he had to. But I could have had him higher. My top 3, you could tell me in any order, and I'd be fine with it. Don't look at me like that. The top three.
Such a troll.
This isn't even trolling. I'm just higher on the other 2. But you could have any of the 3 in any order, and I wouldn't, be mad at it. But 3 is kind of where I had him. I just trust the next 2 guys just more than him. Just kind of, I guess, either upside, and like you said, Jimmy, this might be his year that when he comes back. So
I won't say the other guy's name, but you trust the other guy at this point more than Jaylen Brown?
If he plays, yeah. That's a big if. But he did play a lot of games.
You can't say that about last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, man.
Yes, I was on the troll side of Jalen Brown, his boss's best player, but I'm rational on here. I won't be that bad on here. So
We did it. No,
Well,
but
that means Tatum is going to be number 5 on the power forwards next. He's going to be below Tobias Harris. Okay.
yeah, he might be he might be the honorable mention. Yeah.
Got it. Wow. Jalen Brown at number 3.
I don't think it's that crazy that the top 3 could kind of be in any order, just in my opinion.
Number 2. Go ahead and give us your number 2 then.
That's why I have Kawhi.
Okay. I have Kawhi at number 2 as well.
Like I said, so that leaves Jimmy as my number 1, and it might be biased, but just watching him what he does every year, outside of last year because he didn't play in the playoffs last year, just watching him every year, it's fine for number 1 for me. He is still one of the clutchest guys. He's still a great 2-way player. Like I said, the 3-point shot won't always be there. He can shoot them, he doesn't. It's kind of weird, but that's basically why I landed on it. Like I said, any 3 of them, I'm not mad if y'all had him at 3 because, like I said, any 3 I'm not mad at. 3 in any order is perfectly fine.
Yeah. Tanner, who's your number 2?
mine is Kawhi. See, the one thing I struggled with was not 3 through 10. Okay. Having Clay was a little weird, but 3 through 10 was not my biggest struggle. It was who to put as the best small forward in the association.
My 1 through 4 was easy. It's just after that.
Kawhi played 68 games. Kawhi played 68 games last year. This was something that you wanted from Kawhi, right? You wanted to see from Kawhi. Kawhi and Paul George didn't play less than 68 games last year. Which was, you expect the Clippers to go past the first round when that does happen. That's been the biggest gripe of the Clippers. But it is funny. The farthest the Clippers have gotten under this, roster construction was with Kawhi just not really playing.
That is insane.
Down the stretch of the playoffs. But there's nothing really to be said about Kawhi that hasn't already been said. And he is a little older, but Kawhi is arguably him and Brown, Giannis, Victor, best 2-way player in basketball at the moment. I don't think so, but if you told me that, I'm not mad at you. Kawhi, you said this like before we even started recording. Kawhi, 50, 40, 90 guy almost. Makes a couple more free throws. Kawhi's a 50, 40, 90 guy last year. And I feel like I didn't hear much about Kawhi last year.
No.
It's like the whole Clippers team in general you don't hear much about anymore. Feels like.
Kawhi was sensational last year. I don't know. And there's not really much to be said about Kawhi that hasn't or will be said in the future. I worry about the Clippers at the state of the franchise at the moment. Get Kawhi out of there or get him some help, whatever. But Kawhi is still top 10 player in the league when he's on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah, his all NBA second team season went completely under the radar. And Tanner said it. He was so efficient. Shot 42% from 3, 53 from the floor. Insane to think about the career trajectory of Kawhi Leonard because obviously he's been the great defensive player. And, obviously he's older now, so his defense has deteriorated a little bit. But he still has the same defensive instincts. He still has the same, defensive IQ that he always has, if not better. But offensively, he's just been so fun to watch. And I don't think fun from like a, explosive and flashy perspective. That's not what you're going to get from Kawhi at this point. But he's just so efficient and he is so good at getting to his spots and manipulating defenses, which I think is very, goes under the radar when you talk about Kawhi because he's not like a premier playmaker, but he does so well just getting to his spots and initiating offense. His availability, like Tanner said, he hasn't played that many games since 2017. It has been 7 years since Kawhi Leonard played 68 games. Insane to think about. And yeah, the state of the Clippers, we don't know what to expect from the Clippers next season. A lot of it is, they're trending downward, after losing Paul George. So a lot more will be on Kawhi's shoulders, as he's aging next season. So we'll kind of have to see how he handles that. But yeah, Kawhi Leonard, we know who he is. We know what he's done at this point. So he's number 2 on my list as well. I guess I can talk about Jaylen Brown too, since y'all touched on Jaylen Brown a little bit.
Y'all both had right?
'Cause y'all both revealed y'all's number 1 already, right?
But yeah, I had Brown because I had Kawhi too.
Yeah. Jaylen Brown is my number 1 too. And if you've been watching the channel, I went back and specifically watched the episode. We had Jaylen Brown as a shooting guard last year. I had like a 10-minute spiel about Jaylen Brown. It was after, Game 7, after losing to Miami, and the whole left-hand allegations, of course, no left-hand allegations. And I said Jaylen Brown was going to shake back and he was going to make his mark known in a very big way. And he did that. He did that, winning Finals MVP over like a top 10 cemented player in the league in Jason Tatum, which I think was the biggest thing. Jaylen Brown took over the finals. Jaylen Brown took over the finals, which was so cool to see. And I think whenever you're talking about like best production from a small forward perspective, Jaylen Brown isn't like the first name that comes to mind. But if you look at all that he does, he is that guy. He is the guy like at the top of that list when you think about productivity, when you think about availability, and you think about versatility. The 3 abilities, if you will. Jaylen Brown has the whole trifecta of the abilities. But y'all know how high I always have been on Jaylen Brown. So to see him, come through and win Finals MVP was really cool to see. But he was 50% from the field, 36% from 3. Finishing at the rim was up this year on both sides of the rim, I will say, with his left hand as well. And yeah, he just took over on the highest stage. I don't have a whole lot to say about Jaylen Brown this time around, but I think it's very, very, I think it's a well-deserved number 1 spot for Jaylen Brown at the current day.
If he was on a shooting guard list, where would you have him at? If we would have put him at shooting guard?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. Huh.
I'd keep him at 1, personally.
Really?
I don't know. That's hard because
we had our top 4 was what?
Ant, Booker, Mitchell, and Kyrie.
Kyrie?
Yeah. I would take him over Kyrie. I would take him over Don. I would take him.
I'll say the top 2 is where it's a little fuzzy for me.
I would probably take him over Ant at this point. It's a toss-up between him and Booker, but right now, like, it's Finals MVP, man. He's there for a reason,
If he was on the shooting guard, I think I'd still have him behind Donovan Mitchell. At least I know for sure behind Book and
Donovan Mitchell?
Yes. That is wicked. That is crazy.
For sure behind Book and Ant. You can make a case for Spider, so that's kind of why I had him at 3 here, because I do like the other 2 better. But that's kind of, if he was there, he still wouldn't have been number 1 on mine. Because I'm more Book and Ant than I am Jaylen Brown. But
I can't put it behind Donovan Mitchell. The other 2, I'm fuzzy on. I would have to really think about it.
For me, I would definitely have him over Ant. At this point in time, I would definitely have him over Ant. Booker is a little bit different.
Well, see, we both had Ant over Book. So, and I'm like the biggest Book guy in the world. So.
But that's kind of like when I did this list, kind of when I thought about it. Like if he was on the shooting guard, who would he be above? Because I have Jimmy and Kawhi above Ant or above Spider for sure. So yeah, that's kind of what I went off of it.
That's tough. That's a tough question. Because Jaylen Brown, obviously his numbers aren't going to pop like, the top 2 guys' numbers will. But he's so impactful. He's so impactful. And you can, I guess, do the thing where you say, okay, put Jaylen Brown on the Suns and put Devin Booker on the Celtics. And see what happens then. But that's a hypothetical. That's a what if. We can only, see things as they objectively are, or at least that's how I perceive things whenever I'm really trying to rank these players. So yeah, it's tough for me to bargain putting Jaylen Brown over Ant or Booker, but he is the Finals MVP, and he's a well-deserved Finals MVP. So
he's got that jewelry. He's got that jewelry.
Yeah, he does. The other two guys can't say that.
So with him getting Finals MVP, do you have him better than Tatum then? That's kind of like okay then. So that's kind of why I came with it. The Finals MVP is important, but I just didn't kind of factor in the whole.
That's why it's fuzzy. That's why it's fuzzy. That's a good question though. That's a really good question.
That's kind of what I kind of just where would he be in that list versus kind of. I still have, like I said, I do have Kawhi and Jimmy higher than him, but like I said, I'm not. If he is one, I wouldn't be surprised at all. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, if we're gonna project for like the next 3 to 4 years,
yeah.
Do y'all think Jaylen Brown will be the number one guy on the small forwards list, like for like the next 3 to 4 years, or do you think someone could like overtake him, like a J-Dub?
It'd be between those two.
I think it'd be him. It'd be him, Franz, and J-Dub.
As of now, yeah.
Brandon Miller has a chance to make his way up.
He could.
I think so. I have to see more, but I think so.
Sharp might be holding him down, but yeah, he could.
Yeah.
I don't know. Clay might still be good.
DeMar DeRozan going to average 35 points, lead the Kings to the finals. But yeah, that's it. That's our small forwards list. Thank you, Tanner, for coming on with us today. We might have you back on after not putting together a stinker today. You held your own. You did great, despite having J-Dub at number 7, which is shaky. But always a pleasure to have Tanner on. I appreciate you coming on with us today, man.
Appreciate y'all, boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Y'all got anything else to say before we sign off for this episode? Power forwards will be hopefully next week as we're continuing these lists. But y'all got anything else to add? Anything else to, say before we close?
That's it.
All right. Thank you all for watching, as always. And we'll see you next time. Peace out, y'all.